Imagine a woman who, I don't know, ruthlessly negotiates $1 million merger at 2 in the afternoon, right?
Right.
And then she charms a room of like 50 total strangers at a networking dinner by 7.
Wow. Okay.
But then she goes home and physically shuts down because the hum of her refrigerator is just, it's too loud to endure.
It sounds totally contradictory. I mean, almost impossible to reconcile.
Exactly. It's like, is she this unstoppable force of nature, or is she just neurologically redlining?
Yeah.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today's journey is, it's tailor-made for a listener who wrote to us with a very specific, deeply personal question.
Right, about this exact dynamic.
Yeah, asking why she can completely dominate a boardroom on a Tuesday, but then, she needs to hide under a weighted blanket in absolute silence for 3 days afterward.
Right.
So we've gone through the notes, we've dug into the neurobiology, and today we are basically tearing up the traditional personality tests.
It really are.
Yeah, to look at the hidden architecture of a very specific, highly complex profile.
And this is such a critical exploration. We're unpacking what happens when outward high-achieving behavioral patterns, specifically the choleric-sanguine blend, violently collide with an intense, heavily masked internal reality, specifically an INFJ persona that is actually masking ADHD.
Wow.
And the real value here isn't just, labeling behaviors.
No,
it's understanding the mechanisms. We want to look at the neurological why behind the exhaustion.
Yeah.
And how understanding that collision can completely rewrite how you operate in the world.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand the internal collapse, like the refrigerator hum breaking you down,
right,
we first have to understand the armor that's worn out in the world, the mask.
Exactly.
And for this profile, that outward engine is built on the choleric temperament, which in modern DISC personality assessments, uses as the D style or the captain.
Yeah, which is a behavioral framework that actually traces its roots all the way back to ancient Greece.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Hippocrates and his theory of humorism, he categorized this relentless, driving personality under yellow bile.
Yellow bile, okay.
Right. Now, obviously, we aren't diagnosing people based on bodily fluids anymore.
I hope not.
Right. But the observational science the Greeks laid down about this specific temperament was actually remarkably accurate.
Because it's not just a learned attitude, right? It's hardware.
Yes.
Up to 60% of our temperament is genetic. It is the biological baseline you were born with.
Precisely. So let's look at the underlying neurology. There's a landmark 2001 study that utilized EEG, so electroencephalogram mapping.
Okay.
And it tracked brainwave patterns across different temperaments. And what they found in choleric profiles is fascinating.
What was it?
They display the absolute least brain inhibition of any temperament.
Wait, least brain inhibition?
Yes.
So functionally, what does that mean under the hood? They just, don't have brakes.
Basically, yeah. It means their neurophysiological pathway from thought to action is stripped of the usual cognitive speed bumps. So most people have an inhibitory network in the prefrontal cortex that pauses a thought to ask, is this a good idea?
Right.
Or how will this make people feel? What are the risks?
Like a filter.
Exactly. The choleric brain essentially bypasses that. It doesn't waste metabolic energy on what-ifs. It fires in a straight, highly efficient line. Because they lack that neurological hesitation, they process information incredibly fast, and they make decisions with this aggressive objectivity.
Which perfectly explains why they are constantly described as results-oriented.
Yeah.
They look at an obstacle, and their brain doesn't register fear. It registers a math problem to solve.
That's exactly it.
And it explains why they notoriously require less sleep. Right. Their nervous system is just biologically buzzing at a higher baseline frequency.
But that hyper-efficiency comes with a significant blind spot.
Okay.
If your brain is wired to strictly prioritize action and objective results, it begins to view anything that slows down that process as a threat.
Oh, I see.
Or at the very least, an inefficiency.
And what slows down a process more than, human emotions?
Exactly. To the pure choleric engine, emotions are just friction.
There's a great behavioral anecdote we came across regarding Margaret Thatcher.
Oh, yeah.
And keeping this strictly to behavioral analysis, like zero politics here, she was once asked by a doctor how she was feeling. And her response was the ultimate choleric manifesto. She said something along the lines of, feelings. Why does everybody talk about feelings? It's not what we feel that matters. It's what we do.
What we do is what matters. It's the battle cry of the D style.
Yeah.
But let's look at the mechanics of how that actually plays out in the brain.
Okay.
Because a choleric is still a human being. They still experience the physiological reality of emotions.
Right, in our Roblox.
Exactly. They get cortisol spikes, adrenaline, sadness, but they suppress it.
How so?
Well, think of the choleric brain like a computer CPU that aggressively force quits background applications to maximize processing speed for whatever the main task is.
Oh, I like that. So emotions are just treated like a battery-draining background app.
Yes.
Like Spotify is running in the background making you sad, so you just hit Show and Alt-Delete.
Right. The brain force quits the emotion. But here is the biological reality. Those emotional apps don't actually disappear.
They don't.
No, the neurochemicals are still in the bloodstream. The stress is still in the nervous system.
Oh, wait.
It is just running in a hidden cache, building up heat.
Right.
And eventually the CPU overheats and crashes. And for the choleric, that system crash almost exclusively manifests as a sudden, intense burst of anger.
Now, hold on. I have to push back here.
Sure.
If this profile prides itself on being supremely logical and perfectly in control, why anger? Because anger is a highly volatile, totally irrational emotion. It feels like a massive contradiction to the whole I'm a logical machine persona.
It does, and that's a really common misconception, but you have to reframe how you define anger. For the choleric, anger is not an expression of vulnerability. It is not masking sadness or fear the way it might in other profiles.
Right.
For the choleric, anger is functional.
Functional.
It is a biological response to a loss of control, a blocked goal, or an inefficiency.
Oh, I see.
When they hit an obstacle that logic can't immediately move, the brain deploys aggressive energy anger as a bulldozer.
Wow.
It's literally designed to clear the path so they can get back to being productive.
Okay, it's anger as an administrative tool.
Yes, exactly.
So if we stop here, a pure choleric sounds like a relentless, unfeeling terminator.
Yeah, they do.
But nobody is just one pure thing. People are blends.
Right.
And for this specific profile we're deconstructing, we have to mix this aggressive choleric engine with a second temperament.
Which is the sanguine.
Sanguine. Yeah.
And this is where the camouflage comes in.
Yeah, because the sanguine motto isn't let's conquer the world, it's let's have fun.
Exactly. The sanguine neurobiology is fundamentally dopamine seeking. They are the social spark. They are enthusiastic, talkative, highly empathetic on a surface level. And they can walk into a room of strangers and effortlessly make 50 friends. They crave novelty and social connection.
But the trade-off is they're famously scattered.
Very.
Easily distracted, terribly disorganized, and they struggle with follow-through. It's the classic, squirrel phenomenon.
Yes, exactly.
They'll be telling an incredibly engaging story, get distracted by a text message, and completely lose their train of thought.
Yep.
So you take that chaotic, charming, dopamine-seeking energy and you pour it directly into the choleric engine. What does that actually look like?
Well, you get a paradox. You get a personality that is relentlessly ambitious, but highly sociable.
Right.
They want to lead the boardroom, but they also deeply want the boardroom to love and admire them while they do it.
It makes me think of building a sports car.
Okay.
Like you drop in this massive military-grade aggressive engine that the choleric drive.
Wow.
But then you give it this flashy, brightly colored, incredibly charming paint job.
I love that.
That's the sanguine. It draws you in. You want to look at it. You want to be near it. But underneath that shiny hood, it's moving at 200 miles an hour, and it will absolutely run you over if you get in its way.
That's a brilliant way to visualize it.
Yeah.
And it creates a massive amount of internal friction for the person living it.
I can imagine.
Because outwardly, they are the magnetic life of the party, pulling everyone in with sanguine stories and warmth.
Right.
But internally, that choleric engine is constantly running, making them secretly terribly impatient with the very people they are charming.
Which plays out in how they communicate.
Yeah.
Right. Especially with humor.
Exactly. When the system is running smoothly, they use their quick-witted, sanguine humor constructively.
Like building rapport.
Yeah, building rapport, making a team feel valued. But if the system gets stressed, if that choleric need for efficiency is thwarted by someone's incompetence, they will weaponize that exact same wit. Yep. The charm instantly sharpens into biting sarcasm designed to cut the obstacle down.
So, zooming out, this is the mask. You are driven, you are charming, you command the room, and you deliver results.
Yeah.
You are the captain with a smile. But here is where it gets really interesting. What happens when the networking dinner is over? Let's pivot from the behavioral armor to the profound internal reality.
Right.
Because beneath that choleric sanguine sports car is an INFJ empath persona.
Yes.
And beneath that is the modern revelation that this specific Myers-Briggs type might actually just be ADHD.
Right. This is where we transition from the armor to the architecture.
Okay.
The INFJ, the introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging type on the Myers-Briggs indicator,
Right.
often called the mystic, the counselor, the old soul. These are people who feel the texture of existence incredibly deeply.
Yeah.
They're profoundly sensitive to the emotional and sensory states of the world around them.
Which is wildly jarring when you contrast it with the choleric feelings, or an inefficiency behavior we just talked about.
It is a total dichotomy. And to understand it, we have to look at the childhood development of this profile.
Okay, let's do that.
Because the internal experience of this female profile is often one of profound alienation.
Really?
Yeah. Think of a young girl sitting on the periphery of a playground. She isn't just playing, she is observing what we might call the blueprints of friendship.
She is studying the other kids like an anthropologist.
Exactly. She is watching how other children interact, tracking their facial expressions, manually memorizing the cadence of small talk.
Wow.
She is building a cognitive database of social cues by rote memory because those cues do not come naturally to her neurology.
And that leads us directly into the ADHD revelation.
It does.
ADHD being the clinical shorthand for the co-occurrence of autism and ADHD.
Right.
Now, having both of these neurological profiles existing in one brain simultaneously means the nervous system is basically in a perpetual state of civil war, right?
It is a neurological tug of war that is almost impossible to articulate if you haven't lived it.
How so?
Well, on one side, you have the autism-driven demand for predictable structure, strict routine, sensory control, and deep singular focus.
Okay.
But actively colliding with that, you have the ADHD-driven desperation for constant novelty, impulsivity, chaotic stimulation, and dopamine mining.
So it's the need for extreme routine battling the inability to stick to a routine.
Yes, it's exhausting. And there's a fascinating study from 2018 in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders that bridges this perfectly.
I love data. What did they find?
Researchers looked at adults diagnosed with autism, and they mapped their personality traits against the Myers-Briggs typology.
Okay.
The data showed a massive, disproportionate predisposition toward the intuitive and feeling types, specifically the INFJ and INFP profiles.
Okay, let's connect the dots here because this feels like a paradigm shift.
It is.
Are we saying that personality tests are essentially just categorizing neurodivergence without realizing it?
We have to be precise here. We are not saying that every person who tests as an INFJ is autistic or has ADHD.
Right.
Myers-Briggs is a self-reported behavioral framework, not a clinical diagnostic tool.
Sure.
But what the data does suggest is a structural cognitive congruence.
What does that mean exactly?
The traits that society romantically associates with the INFJ personality, the profound draining empathy, the need for deep philosophical meaning, the intense hyper-focus on niche subjects, and that pervasive, lingering feeling of being an alien observing humanity from behind glass.
Yeah, that's such a specific feeling.
Those traits map almost perfectly onto the lived reality of heavily masked ADHD,
Wow.
particularly in women who, because of societal expectations, are often forced to mask their neurodivergent traits incredibly early in life.
Which brings up a reality that is just heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
For a listener with this profile, the beautifully intricate INFJ personality that she has identified with for years, it might not actually be her personality at all.
Right.
It might be a highly evolved, desperate coping strategy. A survival mask devised by an autistic and ADHD brain just to navigate a neurotypical world that refuses to accommodate her.
It is a mask built for survival. But when you realize that, the relief can be staggering.
Oh, yeah. Relief.
Absolutely, because for decades, someone with this profile operates under a narrative of shame.
Oh, like, why is this so hard for me?
Exactly. Why is existing so hard for me? Why am I the old soul who is constantly exhausted? What is wrong with me?
Right.
Realizing that this is neurodivergence changes the entire script. It moves the internal dialogue away from moral failing and toward biological reality. Oh, this is just how my nervous system is wired.
So what does it actually look like to live inside this specific collision? We have the relentless, results-oriented, highly social, choleric sanguine mask layered directly on top of a deeply sensitive, easily overwhelmed ADHD neurology.
Well, it is a recipe for unparalleled, almost superhuman strengths, followed inevitably by catastrophic physiological burnout.
Let's start with the superpowers,
Yeah.
because they are very real. And they explain how someone with this profile can dominate that boardroom.
Absolutely.
You have the choleric hardware, So the ability to make rapid-fire, objective decisions without fear, paired directly with the ADHD brain's capacity for divergent, nonlinear thinking.
It has an incredible combination.
Yeah.
The ADHD brain is constantly scanning the periphery, taking in unrelated data points. Then the choleric drive forces a conclusion.
So they see things others don't.
They can see patterns and connect dots that a neurotypical linear thinking brain simply cannot see.
And then you layer in the autistic traits, the capacity for unwavering hyperfocus on special interests.
Right.
Combined with the INFJ's intuitive understanding of complex human systems, you get a visionary who actually has the teeth to execute their vision.
Yes.
When this profile locks onto a goal, their output isn't just impressive, it's staggering.
But the biological price tag of that output is exorbitant.
The burnout cycle.
Yes. The burnout cycle is brutal, and it happens on multiple fronts. First, you have the task-based burnout. This profile is notorious for having a graveyard of 50 intensely abandoned hobbies.
Right. You buy the $1,000 espresso machine, you spend 72 straight hours researching coffee bean roasting temperatures, you become an absolute master barista for 3 weeks, and then you never touch the machine again.
Because the ADHD brain was hunting for the dopamine of the novelty, and the choleric brain was hunting for the conquest of the challenge.
Oh, wow.
Once the machine is mastered, there is no more challenge and no more novelty.
It's done.
The brain functionally drops it to seek the next hit. But the much more severe consequence of this collision is the social exhaustion.
Because of the sanguine paid job.
Exactly. The sanguine side makes them fantastic at socializing. They look and act like extroverts.
Yeah.
They charm the networking dinner. But underneath that, the AuDHD nervous system and the INFJ empathy are running in overdrive. They aren't just talking to people, they are absorbing every microexpression, every slight shift in vocal tone, the hum of the fluorescent lights, the smell of the food, the overlapping conversations in the room.
So much data.
They are processing thousands of pieces of sensory data per second.
Which brings us back to the hook. You charm the room at 7 p.m., but by 10 p.m. you have to go home, turn off all the lights, and lie under a weighted blanket in absolute silence for 3 days just to recalibrate your central nervous system.
It's sensory bankruptcy.
Sensory bankruptcy.
And this leads directly to a phenomenon that the INFJ community famously refers to as the door slam.
Okay, I really want to dig into this. Because in traditional personality typing, the door slam is usually described as a boundary-setting mechanism.
Right.
Like an INFJ decides they have been wronged, they reach their emotional limit, and they just coldly, suddenly, and permanently cut a person out of their life.
That is the behavioral observation. But when we look at it through the lens of AuDHD, it is significantly more complex than just a personality quirk or an emotional boundary. The door slam is actually a neurological shutdown.
A shutdown, meaning it's not a choice.
To understand the mechanism, we have to look at RSD, rejection-sensitive dysphoria.
Okay.
This is incredibly prevalent in ADHD profiles. RSD is an extreme, visceral, emotional sensitivity to perceived rejection, criticism, or failure.
So it's not just feeling sad.
No, it literally triggers the brain's pain receptors.
Wow.
So imagine this profile. The choleric mask demands perfection and control, but the sanguine side desperately wants to be liked.
Right.
If they perceive a betrayal or a harsh criticism, the RSD triggers an intense emotional spike.
A massive system error.
Exactly. And
Wow.
simultaneously, their autistic neurology is likely already hovering near sensory overload from just existing and masking in the world.
Yeah.
When the emotional spike of RSD hits an already overloaded sensory system, the brain as amygdala hijacks the prefrontal cortex.
So they just flip a switch.
The system doesn't just ask for a timeout. To protect itself from literal psychological damage, it pulls the main breaker switch. It shuts the power grid down entirely.
Wow. So it's as the choleric CPU overheats icing bag metaphor all over again, but this time, instead of external anger, it's total internal withdrawal.
It is the ultimate defense mechanism. The empathy is switched off, the sanguine charm is deleted, and the person just vanishes.
Which is deeply tragic when you think about it.
It is.
Because people with this profile, they feel the texture of existence so deeply. They desperately crave radical, intense, authentic connection with other humans.
Yes.
But they are biologically and physically drained by the reality of being around them.
It is a profoundly lonely way to exist if it is not understood by the person living it, and just as importantly, by the people who love them.
Which is the perfect pivot. Let's talk about actionable support.
Yes.
Because if you are the partner, the best friend, or the colleague of a choleric sanguine INFJ ADHD Female, you have your hands full. You are dealing with someone who demands to be the captain of the ship, who projects an aura of total bulletproof competence, but who is secretly carrying the crushing, silent weight of a neurodivergent burnout cycle.
And importantly, someone who will almost never ask for help.
Right. So how do you support someone who refuses to admit they need it?
You have to learn to speak their neurological language, and you have to deeply respect their battery.
Okay, where do we start?
Let's start with communication, particularly during times of stress. When this profile is working, their outward operating system is the choleric D style.
Right.
That means you must communicate with extreme efficiency, be direct, be brief, skip the small talk and the long emotional preambles.
It's so funny, but we've seen advice specifically suggesting you communicate with this profile using bullet points, which sounds incredibly cold to use on someone who is secretly a deeply empathetic INFJ.
It sounds cold, but it's actually a profound act of care. Remember the dual brain. The bullet points appeal directly to the choleric need for objective efficiency. But more importantly, it bypasses the ADHD executive dysfunction.
Oh, I see.
When an ADHD brain is stressed, a massive wall of emotional text via email or text message is paralyzing. It's too much data.
Yeah.
Bullet points are structurally safe. They give the brain clear, digestible inputs.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And during conflicts.
Yeah.
Because the sanguine side might run away from conflict, but that choleric side will just run you over.
During conflicts, you have to stay incredibly objective and solution-focused. Remember, when they are stressed, their choleric side defaults to bluntness, and their autistic neurology might completely drop all sanguine social niceties to conserve energy.
So they come across as mean.
They might sound harsh. You cannot take their bluntness personally. It is almost never a lack of love. It is a literal lack of cognitive bandwidth in that specific moment.
And when it comes to offering emotional support, there is a massive blinking red warning sign we need to mention.
Oh, yes.
If you see this person redlining, do not, under any circumstances, just tell them to relax.
That is genuinely the worst possible thing you can say.
Because to a choleric, relaxing equals failing, right?
Yes. The choleric mask views resting as a dereliction of duty, and underneath that, the ADHD brain physically struggles to power down.
Right.
Their dopamine levels are dysregulated. They literally don't know how to relax.
Wow.
So when you say just relax, you aren't offering a solution. You are just making them feel guilty for their own biology. You're telling them they are failing at resting.
So let me pose a real scenario.
Sure.
If this person prides herself on fierce independence, and she views emotional vulnerability as a weakness, how do you tell her she looks like she's about to crash?
Yeah.
If you go up to a choleric sanguine and say, hey, you look really tired and emotional today, they are going to bite your head off.
They absolutely will.
Yeah.
It triggers their defense mechanism. So you have to be tactical. You have to frame the burnout not as an emotional failing, but as a system inefficiency.
That system inefficiency.
Exactly. You bypass the emotional trigger entirely. You don't say, you're doing too much, you need a break.
Right.
You approach them and say, hey, I'm noticing a bottleneck in your workflow.
Oh, I like that.
Or it looks like your current operating system is drawing too much battery power and it's starting to affect your overall output. Let's optimize this. Let's delegate this one task so you can maintain your speed.
That is brilliant. You appeal to their desire for results. You make resting a strategic business move.
Yes. You give their choleric brain permission to rest by framing rest as an optimization tool.
That's so smart.
And once the nervous system starts to calm down, once the mask softens, then you can gently tap into the INFJ core. You don't push, but you gently ask, what do you really feel about this?
Right.
You help them slowly widen their horizons beyond just being productive. You validate that it is safe for them to exist without producing a result.
And finally, what about the disappearing acts?
This might be the most crucial piece of support. Loved ones must understand and respect the battery. When that door slam happens, or they suddenly withdraw from the group chat, or they don't text you back for 3 days after a party, you cannot take it as a personal insult.
It's not about you.
It is rarely about you. It is a biological imperative. The sanguine distraction kicked in, the ADHD object permanence failed, meaning if you aren't right in front of them, their brain literally forgets to engage. And the autistic sensory overload demanded an immediate retreat to a dark, quiet room.
Wow.
If they disappear for a bit, it is not a lack of love, it is survival. Give them the space, and they will reemerge when the battery recharges.
So what does this all mean for someone living this reality? Let's recap this incredible journey we've been on.
Yeah.
We started by looking at the outward armor, the assertive, dominant, results at all costs choleric engine, painted with that highly sociable, energetic, charming, sanguine exterior. The captain who can win over the room.
And we peeled that armor back to reveal the hidden internal reality, the profound, sensory-rich, highly empathetic, and frequently exhausted world of the ADHD brain that society labeled an INFJ. We looked at how those two distinct realities collide, a collision that creates absolute superpowers of strategic vision and execution, but extracts a tragic, heavy toll through chronic burnout and neurological shutdowns.
Which brings me to a thought I just can't shake. We established early on that up to 60% of our temperament, the choleric drive, the sanguine spark, is genetic.
Right.
It is hardwired. But we've also just spent a considerable amount of time unpacking how these elaborate personalities we claim, the captain, the mystic, the empath, are sometimes just highly evolved coping mechanisms.
Exactly.
They are intricate layers of armor we've built over decades to protect an underlying, easily overwhelmed neurobiology from a chaotic world.
It forces you to completely challenge everything you think you know about identity.
It really does. So here is the question we want to leave you with. If your celebrated personality is, in part, just a brilliantly designed survival strategy, then who is the real you? Are you the successful, driven, charming mask that knows exactly how to navigate the world and crush every single goal? Or are you the hidden, sensitive, overwhelmed brain underneath, just begging for a moment of quiet in the dark?
And more importantly, do you actually have to choose?
That is the ultimate journey of integration.
Yeah.
We started this deep dive looking for a clear, precise X-ray. We wanted to point to a jagged white line and say, there it is. That's who she is.
Yeah.
But human beings aren't broken bones. We are the murky, deep waters. And sometimes the bravest thing you could do isn't trying to clear the water, it's just finally learning how to swim in it.